Hello, Naomi. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to this week's episode of Living Abroad, the podcast. Thank you so much for coming through. And we're on episode number 5, and you are the first woman to make it on the podcast.
Yay.
So thank you. It's not like I've not been asking women and ladies to come through, but you're the first one to make it through. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I was starting to think maybe people are gonna think this podcast is only for men. No. No, it can never be. Honestly, no, I can never do that. So I've been yearning and so desperate to hear a woman's voice. And so, yeah, you're the first one to come through. So thank you. Mix things up a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And yeah, welcome guys to this week's episode of Living Abroad. This podcast, like I've been saying, is just like a learning platform and a sharing, platform for anyone who's living in another country, that is not the country that they were born in. That's just kind of living abroad. And I'm a South African born living in Scotland. So I've been this past few weeks, I've been hearing inspiring stories, sad stories, and just honestly, it's been great. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. And if you can introduce yourself, who you are, where were you born, and where did you grow up, and how did you end up moving to Scotland? Just a brief intro.
Yes. So hi, my name is Naomi, and I was born in India in the late 70s. I don't really know exactly when I was born. I was adopted to Sweden in 1979. I think it was 90, yeah. And so I grew up in the very most southern point in Sweden, on a farm. My mom bred horses and my dad was a farmer. And it was predominantly a very white community. I did have one other person of color in my class, and there was a few other adoptees in the school as well.
And when you say you're not 100% sure when exactly you were born, but what were you told?
I wasn't really told anything. It's just they were just telling me that I was handed in by my birth mother to the hospital, and I probably was a couple of years old, and then they wanted to my adopted mother got to set the date for my birthday, and so she basically decided. They said roughly how old I was. They thought maybe 2.5. So she decided that this is the year when you were born and you got your birthday. And I think I've never really spoken about it before, and I never thought about it before, but it's now when my birthday comes around, it's not really that a joyous occasion for me, because I don't really, a birthday's like you celebrate your birth. I mean, and most people know I love speaking to people who's had babies or who have been told themselves, oh, you weighed this much when you were born, and oh, it was a really easy birth, or it was really hard and you were a small baby, or these kind of details. And when you don't have that, I don't even know where I was born, and that's quite difficult.
Yes.
And when I was in my early 20s, yes, I went to America as a nanny for a year. I wanted to get out and get out and explore the world, and I wanted to be a filmmaker since I went to cinema for the first time when I was little with my granny, and you watch these movies and you just think, wow, this is incredible. So I wanted to get out into the world. So I went to America for a year and was a nanny, and it was an amazing experience. And I came home and I was just so bored. And and then I actually bought a one-way ticket to Scotland. I've never been here before, and I just thought I want to go somewhere where they speak English. And I know a lot of people who's been to Ireland because I used to compete with horses, and horses is very big in Ireland, horse training. And I thought, oh, I'll go to Scotland. For some reason, the books that I was reading was saying, oh, there's hardly any people there. So I thought, yeah, I can be the first one, kind of thing. And that's not true. So I came here in 2001, and I came here just to travel initially. And then I was here for a year. I lived around hostels, traveled around the whole of Scotland, and I met my husband in the Highlands. Sounds really romantic. I met him in the Highlands, and then I stayed.
Yeah, for love.
Yeah.
And also, what was it like then growing up and having these questions?
When I can remember when I was younger, we didn't really speak about it. It's not something that we spoke about as a family. And you have all these questions, but you don't really feel like you can ask them. And you know that you're different because your hair is bushy and your eyebrows are bushy, and you have a different skin color, and you look very different. I mean, if you show school photos to people, and it's just a white class, and they say, oh, point me out, it's like, yeah, that's really hard, but me, I'm like, you stand out like a sore thumb. So it was really difficult because you felt like you couldn't ask questions. And it wasn't until I feel that the world woke up 2 years ago, and it's horrible to say so, but when the murder of George Floyd happened, a lot of people of color woke up, and white people too. But we have to remember that what happened to him has happened for hundreds of years before that, like infinite amount of people that's happened to. But for me, I woke up also and thought, wow, I realized what racism is. And then I also started thinking about my adoption, and adoption came about in a quite racist way, in a racist way as well, because it was the colonizers who thought, I'll save these babies, and if we raise them as our own in a white society, then and teach them our language, then they'll be less, I don't know, less of an animal, I suppose, as people of color were always seen as. And the more I've been reading in and up on adoption and up on being a person of color, and in particular, I think listening to Black voices has been incredibly helpful. Just also, again, particularly in America, because America has come so much further than Europe has, and so has Canada, because they're already talking about it. Black people there have already been fighting for their rights actively. So yeah.
I mean, is that how you really feel like about your adoption journey and the story of you being adopted by a white family as a person of color? That is just people really basically feeling like, oh, let me just go and save these Black babies to just feel better about myself. And how do you feel about like people like Angelina Jolie and Charlize Theron, who will go to Africa and like Africa and Asia, and adopt children of color and raise them in their white world?
I just want to say first that I don't speak for every adoptee or every transracial adoptee. So I just speak for my opinion. I've come to a place 2 years ago where I was really angry. I was so angry, and I still hold this anger about it in general, because there's so many of us. I don't know if you've read about it, but there's been a huge uprising, if you may, of transracial adoptees finding out that their papers have been destroyed and that their birth parents weren't they were told that they were dead at birth, and then they were immediately sold. And when we're talking about sold, they were actually sold for money. And then we talk about trafficking. Trafficking is people think is such a strong word, and it really is. But if we think about children being adopted, we put a name on it because it sounds a bit fancier, but it is trafficking. We're buying and selling humans, and that's what that is. And that's kind of with people like these celebrities that are buying babies, in particularly Black and brown babies. It's really problematic because they're really making it look really glamorous. Like it's this thing, or I just went to Cambodia and bought myself a brown baby. It's like a puppy, or it's a thing. And I feel like I have at least been able to explore. I've been able to explore things because I'm not in the public eye. But these young people, these children that are growing up in this environment, where's their safety net? Where is their support? Because when I was growing up, there was never ever anyone who came and asked me if I was okay or if I was having a good time and good upbringing, or just checking in. And that's concerning.
But what do you think then should intervene? Is it the government, or like, what do you think are the parents that are going to adopt children who are not, like the same ethnic? What should they be taught, and what should be the requirements? I mean, from your experience, because you've lived this life.
I suppose I have quite a strong view that I don't believe in adoption. I know adoption is different from fostering in the way that if you adopt a child, they legally become yours. And also the big thing is that you can also inherit from those parents. If you're fostered, you're not, if your parents die, if your foster parents die, you can't inherit anything. And I know I'm talking about inheritance, but it's still something that's part of a family, and it's something that's part of being a family. Yes. But I always think that we should advocate for families to stay together. And the excuse for majority, I would even go as far to say as 90%, over 90% of adoptions, if you help the family to stay together instead of taking that child out of there, because a lot of families actually sell their babies because to feed the rest of the family. And to me, that's not a solution. And it's not a solution for that family either, because you think, yeah, they're getting money, but at the same time, it's just money. And then I've read quite a lot of articles where they blame the birth parents for selling their child.
Yes.
But if white people want to help people of color and help these children in these countries, support them where they are. Adopt a family. Well, adopt a family and support them. Give them money to raise their children and to keep them in their home and to educate them. I know India, where I was adopted from, they have, I don't know if they put a full stop to it, but majority of adoptions done to Sweden are from India. That's what I read in an article. And so India's decided, no, we want to keep our children now, because the main reason for that is because they want to keep them within their own religion. They don't want them to be Christian. Yes. So they adopt them within the country. So I don't know what the real answer is, but I think that there needs to be a stop to proper stop to trafficking, and that should include all trafficking. Because basically back in the day when I was adopted, you could basically just go. You probably didn't even have to have papers in that sense. Just go and take a baby and take it
And you
home.
can be anyone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I mean, what are those checks that they really do? The background checks that they do are from friends and family. What are the friends and family going to say about their family? Are they going to say that they're horrible people?
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not going to say that they're horrible people. So there's so many parents who desperately try to have a baby who hasn't been able to conceive, and then they have this baby and they have this perception of what they want this baby to be, and they get it, and one, it's not the same skin color as them, and two, they come with this massive other culture that they will never be allowed to explore. So I was always considered a problematic teen. But I mean, imagine going into your teens with all the other stuff, like the normal things that you go into as a teen. Being a teenager is really hard. But then on top of that, you have all these other questions and all these other things. It's really, but it's really difficult. I feel there's a lot of things that have failed. I don't think that Sweden is the only country to blame. I think India on the other side is also to blame, because they have sold these babies left, right, and center, and without control in my eyes, because there's a lot of them who, I don't know if anyone's seen Lion, which is a great example. It's a film based on a book by a boy who was adopted from India, and he got lost at a train station from his brother, and he was trying to find his way back, but he couldn't, so he was taken and sold to Australia. And I mean, he somewhere remembered this because he was old enough. I was 2.5 when I was about 2.5 when I was adopted. I was my own person. I was extremely confident. I knew exactly who I was. And then I came to Sweden and I was not allowed to keep my language. I was not allowed to sing. I was very loud. I was singing and I was shushed. And, you know, this person bit by bit got lost somewhere. So when I hit my teens, she kind of came back a little bit. And like I've always had my own beliefs. If I think so, I have strong beliefs in things, and I love discussing things, not arguing, but discussing things with people. And I suppose my parents and maybe other people thought I was just being argumentative, and I always had to think opposite to what they thought. And I suppose that's a way of thinking, but I think also that's something that wasn't really dealt with, because it's a massive trauma to lose your family and your culture at the same time as your language with everything else. And at some point that will have to come out.
But when can you remember saying, okay, fine, this is the time or the day, or this is the incident that...
Yeah, right away. When I don't really have many memories. I think I've suppressed quite a lot of things, but you should have some kind of memories from when you're 2.5. I don't have exact memories, but I can't remember a time when I didn't feel different, because I was always told that I was different. And I was kind of like, oh, look at this little girl, she looks like a doll. And like, oh, look at your big black hair, and look at your bushy eyebrows. So those things were always present, so you were always reminded constantly.
Wow. So how, like, what were the clashes between you and your parents, like as a teen? So
I would say, because I competed quite a lot. I competed every weekend pretty much with my horses. I didn't particularly go out and party. I've always been an introvert, believe it or not. I am still an introvert. I very much like I have a small friend group, and I quite like keeping to myself. And I suppose it was very different to how they were, because they were quite sociable. That's the thing as well, that when they looked at me, they didn't see themselves. And that's also something that's really problematic, that looking at your child and you don't really understand them.
And when you talk, I mean, as a teen, I've got a teen here, of my own. And I mean, I can't imagine what it feels like. I mean, being at school and you probably the only Black, teen there. And for her, because I grew up in South Africa, I went to school in South Africa, like everyone is speaking my language. So for her, and one of the things to talk about is there's only 3 of them, only 3 Black girls in the school. And she was talking about dating and stuff, like all the white girls are dating, or this one is dating this one, and this is all nice. But not that, of course, she wants to be going out and dating, but it's like, Mom, do you know that none of these boys ask us out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose I was that interested in dating, because I was always so busy with my horses, and I did fancy a few boys. We went out to discos and stuff, but I do recognize that being kind of the boys were always interested in my friends who were all white, and never so interested in me.
Yeah. And moving forward now, you did mention about the death of George Floyd and how you feel like, well, I feel like, and most people feel the same. Like, I think we kind of woke up to many things. And I'm not going to be out here saying, oh, my marriage broke down because of the death of George Floyd, which is not, like true. But a lot of things kind of like, I mean, I have been saying this. I'm not crazy, and I've been called crazy. I mean, this is not right. These jokes are not right. You're not supposed to be saying this. You're not supposed to be saying stuff like this. Your family is not supposed to be making these jokes on the dinner table, So a lot of us did wake up, like, and you feel like it's just like something has been like taking off your eyes.
I feel like I paid more attention to films, and particularly about the lack of representation in films, but also how people of color were perceived in films, how they were always the best friend, and the Black girl was always really loud, and the Black man was always quite aggressive, and but also the hunk, and quite often fetishized as well. And the Indian or East Asian men were usually quite unattractive. And
when you're talking about representation, were there any Asian or Black people on TV in Sweden when you were growing up?
No, there was occasionally black people when it came to people who were models, but not in films, unless it was like films that were made for, let's say, films about enslavement. Then obviously there was Black people. And stuff about colonization, and they were in India. Obviously there was Indian people, but there was no main character who were a person of color, and there was no other cast who was people of color. It was just very white.
So now when you leave and you go to America, how does that feel like?
That was amazing. So the family I worked for, they were a white Jewish family, and so this is the first time I meet a person of color since I was adopted. So our English teacher, she was a Black woman, and I can remember I was the only person of color in the class, and I can remember walking in, and I suppose this is the first time of many times that I walked into the room and we clocked eyes, and I could just see her face just lit up. And I think that's the first time I ever felt that I was like I felt seen. That was the first time I felt seen. And she was incredible, and she made me really interested in listening to her stories. And
I mean, at that time, it was not as multicultural as it is today. How was that?
I suppose I traveled around staying in the hostels. I didn't really mix with Scottish people until I met my husband, and think about it, until I did get a job in a bookshop up there, and one of my colleagues, he came up from behind me, and he put his head right next to me and smelled me, and then he said, "Oh, you don't smell of curry." And I was like, "Why would it smell of curry?"
Wow.
And then my husband told me that he actually said to him, "You do know that she only married you because she wants a visa." And he told him, "Well, she's part of the EU, so she doesn't need a visa." I think that's definitely the first encounter that I had, and I was
welcome to Scotland. Is that how you were welcome to Scotland?
Yeah.
I mean, we laugh about it, but honestly.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of left a sour taste, and a few other things that happened as well that left a quite sour taste for me, that I wanted to leave the Highlands. It's quite,
which is nice, and it's multicultural, isn't it, Edinburgh?
Yeah, it is much more multicultural. I wouldn't say that I mixed with more people of color there. It wasn't until we moved to Glasgow 2 years ago that I really saw the actual numbers of people of color who live here. Is I've never had neighbors that are people of color, and in the last 2 years I've moved twice in Glasgow, and both times I have Black neighbors, which it's so nice.
But what has your journey been like, trying to find yourself, trying to find out who you are and your roots and your culture and your language? And
it's been very difficult to, particularly the finding myself part, I suppose. I find myself, I don't like Indian food, I don't like Bollywood films, I don't like Indian music, all those things I liked when I was younger. But it feels like I was it's been shamed, because as you well know as well, African cultures, along with Asian cultures, are quite shamed. It's not something that we should be practicing. So I felt like it wasn't ever available to me. And when I took the decision to move here, it was actually, I've been in very low places in my life. And at that point, I was in a very low place. And I basically decided that either I was going to leave or I didn't want to be here anymore. And so thankfully, I got help from a friend, and I bought a one-way ticket to Edinburgh, and I came here. And I can remember spending the first week I was here just walking around aimlessly. I didn't really take anything in. I can't really remember much from it. It's quite blurry, because I didn't really know how to interact with people, because all of a sudden I was in a setting where no one knew me, and I could be whoever I wanted to be. I mean, that was incredible. And actually, before I left Sweden, I changed my name. My name was Anna, and growing up, that was the name that was given to me by my adoptive parents. And a couple of months before I left, I decided to change it. So I did it legally. I could only change my first name.
So what was the reason you changed your name?
Because people think that there's not much it's just a name. But it is so much more. It's your identity. I feel like your name is connected to an identity. And I do have my Indian names as well, but to me they don't mean anything because I don't really know in what setting I got them, who gave them to me. But I feel like Anna was always, if I felt like it was, if someone said Anna to me, I was like, oh, what did I do? Or it was like, it's something, it was associated with this trauma. And so I basically just thought about names that I quite liked. And so I picked Naomi. And it took a while, it took me years before I actually started telling people that that was my name, because they felt really strange. But I suppose that's when my journey actually became to finding who I am, because I was this different person, and I could actually be the person I want to be. I can be loud. I can sing if I want to. I can dance. I can dress however I want. I can, yeah. And that's huge. And people don't look strange at you because they don't know who you were before that either. So.
And you speak fluent Swedish? Yeah. Wow. So have you had like situations where you hear people gossiping in Swedish and then they don't, they have no idea that you can hear them? Have you had?
I actually had this in the bookshop years ago. I had two Norwegian people speaking, and they were saying how hot me and my colleague were, and maybe we should ask them out. And so when I finished, I was like, I get off at 8 o'clock if you want to meet in the pub.
In Swedish.
And their faces went bright red. It was so funny.
I guess that was something nice.
Yeah.
You go to the pub at 8 o'clock though.
But on the other side of that, I've actually had this is the difficult part of being adopted, that I have this side where I'm Swedish, and people look at me, even people of color look at me like, really, are you? But I have a passport that's Swedish. I feel Swedish, I think, and I speak fluent Swedish. But then I've had situations where Indian people have come up to me and spoke Hindi to me, and I said,
like?
I had that in the cinema. At the cinema, I worked in a cinema for a while, and they came up and spoke in Hindi, and I said, I don't speak Hindi, and she looked at me like I slapped her in the face. And she said, why? And I said, I'm sorry, I know Swedish. I grew up in Sweden. And she's like, she just looked at me like I was the dirt under her shoe. And so it's really hard, because you don't fit in with Swedish people, but you don't fit in with Indian people either. And the most accepting people that I've found, and I actually have quite a lot of friends who are Black, because I feel I really have this craving of having people of color in my life. And I find Black people really open and really friendly, and it's a really weird thing to think about, but yeah, you're not seen as being proper Indian, and that's a shame.
Anyway, yeah. And also you talk about like your filmmaking journey. Like, so, I mean, when did you decide you wanted to be a filmmaker, and why?
So I can't remember how old I was. I was definitely around maybe 5, and I went to the cinema and saw a Disney film with my grandmother. And I can just remember when we walked out, I was like, I want to do that. And she's like, what? You want to be an actress? I was like, no, I want to make those. They're incredible. And she was like, you can. My grandmother was incredible. She was the most supportive person in my life. And she always told me, you can do whatever you want to do. And I was like, whoa. And I actually believed this. I actually really believed her. And I was really like, wow, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And I got in. So I did my I only did a bachelor here, for the reason that they basically didn't like anything that I did. They didn't like anything that I created. And when I went in to pitch my fourth year film, they just laughed at me. And I was just like, okay. So I told them that my aim was to go to New York and do my master's. And one of my teachers actually told me that that's never gonna happen.
So what was the film?
The film that I was gonna make.
Yes.
In fourth year, well, I had come up with an idea of a zombie musical. And it actually came out a couple of years later. Someone else made it. And it was
they were laughing at you when you
yeah.
Oh, wow. That's why you shouldn't believe people when they tell you can't do something, especially in this film world.
Oh, absolutely not. And I think that's something that I've learned, because I left university and I had no self-esteem whatsoever. And my husband picked me up and he said, no, you're going to go apply, because in America, you don't have to have your honors to do your master's. So I applied to New York Film Academy to do my master's at Universal Studios in Los Angeles. And I got in. Which was incredible. Like I still can't believe that I got in. But then the funding wasn't there, unfortunately. And the only funding I could find was, there was always a clause, I had to have been born in Sweden, or I had to be a Scottish citizen or a UK citizen, or there was also always clause to these things. And I mean, everyone knows that education in America costs a lot of money. And I did ask my family for help, but they never really supported it. I mean, it's filmmaking and it's not really a real thing.
I mean, I was talking to this guy last week, and he's a filmmaker, he's an independent filmmaker, and we were talking about the loneliness of being a filmmaker and trying to explain to your loved ones like what you want to do, and it's not really paying you like a monthly salary, and people just don't get it. You know, you want to put like 50,000 pounds towards this film, like, you know, like, how are you going to sell it? And trying to explain that, it's just like, no.
It's really hard. And I have said, I mean, if I did go, it would have been in 2011, sorry. And then, I mean, the world is your oyster and it is what you get out from it. But when you just constantly have like this stop, constantly, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do this. And I think, again, it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I did realize that the reason why this happened to me at university, I mean, I was the only person of color in my class.
And I mean, if we just had a chat about that, like funding, like trying to get funding as a filmmaker in this space. Well, we are in the UK, in Scotland. How hard has it been for you? And why? Why do you think that is?
So I found, when I lived in Edinburgh, I found the film scene very cliquey. I do know quite a few filmmakers, but it's this kind of, they give the opportunities to family and to friends. So it's quite cliquey. They keep it within. So, and then when it comes to funding, I do feel that it's the same kind of thing. They say that they do want to support new up and coming people, but the up and coming people that they're supporting are the people that they already know about. So when you're someone who comes, you know no one, you have no contacts, you're nobody. So you have nothing behind you. The one thing that the reason why I've got a few jobs is because when I moved to Glasgow, I came in contact with a woman who knew another woman who was an independent filmmaker, and I met up with her. We had a nice coffee in the park, and after that, she was really busy. So I kept getting these emails saying, "Oh, this woman told us about you, and she couldn't do this project because." So I basically got her overflow. So the projects that she couldn't do, I got them. which was amazing. I mean, it's been so nice to be able to do, I love editing in particularly. And so be able to sit and do that at home. I've been able to invest in a new laptop, which was incredible, which I really needed, because as you know, that's the problem as well. They expect you to have all the equipment yourself, but where's that going to come from if I don't get paid to do it? So it's like
and you chose editing. I mean, how hard is it for people to trust a woman like to edit?
Yeah, I have now decided to really actually do it properly. I really want to learn more about 3D animation, and I really have a passion for it. I love it. I made a music video years ago, and this is something that that I really love doing, something with a beat. And I think every film, no matter what film or documentary it is, it has this heartbeat through it. And I love bringing that heartbeat out. But then you're in this industry and you're really into something that a lot of men are into because they think that is really gender based for some reason, and then you say you're an editor, can like give me a job and they kind of look at you and I'm this little brown woman.
And like it's really strange because I watched a documentary years ago at college, and they were like, it was about like the history of editing, of video editing, like when it started. It was actually done by women, because it kind of like represents like sewing, because you just like cut and then you have to put all these clips together. It was done by women like overnight. So I'm not sure when it started to be like a men dominated like industry, but they kind of grab anything really.
I think they do, yes. I got an editing job at COP26 in Glasgow last year, and during my time I was there, there was a lot of people that came up to me and looked at what I was doing and like, are you editing? Are you the editor? And I was like, yes, I'm the editor. Everyone else in the crew were men, white men. And there was me just sitting there on the floor editing away. But you're so overseen. I mean, when they look at you and you're like, yeah, oh, she was the editor. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So where are you now, like in terms of your work, in terms of your filmmaking and your editing? Like I was telling you, it's like it just gets tiring and so discouraging if you're waiting for people to fund you to make your projects. And that's why I decided to do this. I mean, it feels so good to just being able to come up with an idea, implement it, and produce it without waiting for that funding. Or I've already made, or knock on the BBC, like to show my work, So where are you at this point, like with your work?
I have to say, it's so admiring, and I get such a energy from people like yourself who actually just say, no, stuff this, I'm just going to do it myself, because I've done that myself as well. And I've done video weddings, I've done the music videos. I always keep putting myself out there and try to film my own stuff. And so I do have a documentary on the go about my like where we were talking about finding yourself and your journey. I did a DNA test last year, which was huge for me. And so I really want to put that into a book and to documentary, but like you said, it's really hard with funding. So I do have on Instagram and Facebook, it's called Mera Safar. It's my journey in Sanskrit. And so I'm actively working on that as well. And then I am very active in my local union, Unite community, and I'm the equalities rep for them. And I also do quite a few films for them, just short campaign films and informational stuff. But it's helpful to keep doing stuff. With my anti-racism work, we're now I was handed a story by one of my colleagues the other week, and I just turned it into a script, and that's kind of what I've been working on.
Wow.
And I haven't written a script in so many years, but it's so fun to get into it again and like it's such a good story, and I just feel like, yeah, this is good. But now we're looking for funding. So
Back to
this
that
will be
funding, always.
the challenging bit. The fund.
Well, I mean, when you say you did a DNA test, what did you find out?
So since I was little, I remember I read my mom's diary. She wrote a diary when she was in India, and she kept writing how the correspondence with the hospital was, oh, you're going to be so happy because your little girl, she's so light-skinned, because that's obviously seen as more beautiful. And that's really stuck with me. And like growing up, everyone's like, oh, you're so light-skinned, oh, it's so beautiful, your color. So that's obviously something that's really stuck with me. And I always kind of thought in the back of my head, maybe I'm half white, because I'm so light-skinned. And with the trauma that India has with colonization, I haven't ever dared to look into it, because then finding out if you are half, then that comes with a whole other thing, because then you think, oh, how did I come to be, and do I want to know this? But it turns out that I'm 100% Indian. Yeah, I come from the north of India, where I was adopted, and it actually showed, I don't know 100% how accurate that is, but it basically shows my lineage from the north of India right down to Africa, to the northeast of Africa. So yeah, that was incredible. It was, I never looked for family. I didn't do DNA tests to look for family. I purely wanted to know where I'm from.
Is it something that you'll ever do? Like, I mean, with your documentary, are you gonna go to that journey of trying to find out about your family, your biological family?
I don't think I've ever really wanted to do that. I might go and leave my details there. I know that maybe my mom might be married to someone, and maybe that person doesn't know about me, and it can, you can flare up all these things. And some things, you have this trauma of not knowing, but then knowing isn't always better. Like for me personally, that's how I feel. Because you don't always know how you came to be, or why they gave you up, or if you were lost, or if you were stolen. And do I want to know this? I don't really feel the need to know, but I am planning to go back to India for the first time since I was adopted, which was over 40 years ago.
Wow.
Which will be, it's something that I've really put off, because I haven't really been able to deal with it emotionally, I think. But just doing that journey will be big.
Is that going to be part of your documentary?
Yes, yeah.
Have you started filming it, or where you are with that?
I have actually done a few interviews in Sweden, because quite a few of the friends and family, they're a little bit older, so I wanted to catch them on film, because I mean, I don't know how long this is going to take. So I have filmed a little bit. I have a style in mind of how I wanted to go. It's not going to be your conventional documentary, because I love documentaries that are really engaging. So it will be very different in style.
Wow, that's so amazing. So how open is your adopted family about talking about this?
Not open at all. We've never, when I was younger, the only thing I can remember was just, I think we looked at photos together sometimes, but whenever you had questions and stuff, it was just, yeah, no. It felt like there was never any direct answers, but probably because they didn't really know everything either.
Yeah.
But so you kind of felt like, yeah, this, maybe you felt the tension. I mean, adults, I think children get more from the adults than adults give them credit for, because you feel this tension from your parents, and then you just like, nah, I'll just leave it.
And also sometimes I mean, I don't know how, like, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but could it be maybe sometimes you feel like these people adopted me, they gave me a home, but I think it would feel like an insult if I'm asking them questions about my past? and also betrayed
Yes.
in some way.
You feel quite guilty. Like I felt guilty sometimes asking things, and then they look hurt, and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel a bit guilty. But this is something that's been really healing for me in the last year and a half. I've been part of the Facebook group just for adoptees, and you don't have to share anything if you don't want to. But it feels like a really healthy space where sometimes if I'm really angry now, I can just post there, and you get seen, because there's people there who feel exactly the same way you do. And I kind of feel that why should I feel grateful? That's something that I've always heard growing up. Oh, you should feel so grateful. You should be so grateful because you were saved, and you should be so grateful because you had a wonderful life. But that's what you see from the outside. And telling a child who's lost their whole family and their whole culture to be grateful, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah. And I mean, how has your fight for your anti-racism, education, like the project, how did it come about, and what are you doing there? What are you guys up to there?
So I think, yeah, it was about a year and a bit ago. I joined the collective of women in anti-racism work. We didn't really work out because we had a different viewpoint on how we wanted to approach it. So I decided to branch out myself, and so I created anti-racism education. And I would say that a lot of people have this urgency. We need change now. We need change now. Everyone needs to wake up, and everyone needs to do something. I don't really, I know it's urgent. However, this, how white people are and the power that they have in the world, that did not happen overnight. That happened over many, many years. It's deeply, deeply ingrained in our society. That's never going to happen overnight. So I think chipping away a little bit at a time and create sustainable change, where we have healthy discussions and get white people to understand that this is why society isn't just for everyone. And I think a big question as part of that has been, ask yourself, what does it mean to be a Black woman for you? And I mean, you could probably sit there for an hour and tell me what it's like to be a Black woman, but ask a white person the same thing. What is it like to be white? And I mean, I could say what it means to be white because you have this whole power thing. But for a white person who's never had to question their color, they've never had to question that, because there's never been a reason for why they're suppressed. So I want people to start thinking about things, and I think it's really helped me. I feel like I have quite a unique standpoint because my husband's white, and we're very open. We speak about everything, and it was actually him. He came home a couple of years ago. He's really active in the union as well, and he came home and he hugged me. And he had tears in his eyes, and he said, "I never realized how bad people of color have it." So during this meeting, he got invited as the only white person to attend a meeting with the Black Workers Committee. So he sat in this room with just people of color, listening to their stories from how they've been treated in the workplaces and in society in general. And there was people crying about the way that they've been treated racially. And one of the people in there turned around and told him that, you do know that everyone in this room are behaving differently just because there's one white person in the room. And that made him think, wow, yeah, okay. And I never thought about, at the time, I didn't really think about it, but now I've never been in a setting where it's only people of color until I started doing my anti-racism stuff. And I know it's just like this, like over Zoom or something. But even that, just seeing brown and Black faces, I mean, wow, it's so empowering.
So who gets to join? Like is it like sessions online?
Yeah, so right now we have Facebook and we have Instagram, and I put on I have guest speakers once a month. It's called Listen to Our Voices, and so it's basically, I wanted to create this platform for people to share their lived experiences in a safe space, and for people to listen. And it's very much like the setting you set up yourself. There's no commentary. There's no one who can interrupt. Everyone's muted. You can't sit and write in a chat, because you have to listen. You have to take this in. Even if it's hard to listen to, you have to take it in. And we haven't had masses of people attending. I think maybe 5 to 10 people. But I feel it's really good to have those like small groups rather than big groups, because then I feel people feel a bit safer in that setting as well, white people. And I know it feels really silly to say for white people to feel safe, because I mean, there's safe everywhere. But for learning to happen, you have to feel safe. And we can't get rid of hate by giving hate back. So we can't hate people for something that happened in the past, but we can hold them accountable for what they're doing right now. Are you doing something actively? And I feel a lot of these spaces are being taken up by white people. Talks about anti-racism. I think white people, there is a space for them, but they should be talking about how are we going to dismantle white power. That's what white people should be concentrating on.
So, I mean, do you get white people joining the group?
Yes, the majority of the people that are listening are white. And initially I didn't want to take on any white people in as part of my collective, but last year I took on a white woman who I've been having contact with over the 6 months before, and she was very much interested in dismantling white power and teaching white people about how to become safe for people of color. And I thought that was incredible to have a person like that on board. And I also have another colleague who's a Black woman who I've known for over a year now, and she does a lot of research. There's a lot of things that you don't realize that is so different. It's very different to be Black, and it's very different to be Asian. I don't have the same experiences as you do, so it's important to have these different experiences in the room as well. We've recently been joined by a footballer. He played in Scotland. Well, he's a footballer who plays in Scotland. He's French. He lives here, and listening to his shared experiences as a Black man has been so valuable for all of us. And then recently I actually let my husband join as a white man. I think is very important, because he is at the top of the food chain. So it's important for other white people to listen to him, and he's really good at explaining. And I also think that when I'm in settings and he can see that I'm getting tired, then he takes over and he explains things to them, because we also have to realize that we shouldn't rely on Black and brown people to tell you things. You should be looking out for yourself, look things up for yourself. If you want a direction, I'll tell you what to read, I'll tell you what to look at. And that's why I set this page up predominantly, because for white people, it's kind of like a library. You can go in and you can have a look what you want to have a look at. There's colonization, there's about hair, and there's about, representation, all these things.
Anyone can join.
Sorry?
Anyone can join.
Yeah, anyone can join.
Can try and find you guys and join in.
Yeah.
And where do you find, or how do you find that balance, being married to a white man as a Black woman, and also you are fighting this fight of anti-racism and you're trying to educate people? Do people take you serious when, they can hear you talk, and then once they realize you're married to a white man, what do you think the reaction is? Do they
there's quite a few people. I think the hit back that I've had have been predominantly from people of color. A lot of people of color, well, a few people of color that I met have said that mixed race couples is not healthy, and there's quite a lot of these, preconceptions. I think I have a big privilege over you, for example, and not only am I very light skinned and I'm Asian, I don't have much of an accent. A lot of people think that I'm from here because of my accent, and I think that's helped me a lot to get listened to, and it's helped me a lot getting part of maybe the union and being part of other spaces as well, because there is these levels of if you speak to someone on the phone, that's the first contact that you have with someone. You would never think that, because they have this concept, oh no, she must be white because she sounds white, because that's what white people sound like. So you have this privilege, and I think that that's kind of helped me. There's also white people who doesn't want to listen and they want to argue with you. I had a talk about Irish hate recently and tried to explain why it's not racism. So I got a white Irish man come on to speak about it, because he's written an article about it, and just to get, I think white people listen to white people. So I try to not have too many white people on my chats, but when it comes to stuff like that, I think it's good for white people to listen to white people about it.
No, it's good that you're getting them involved, because there's no point of us just ranting and talking to each other, because we didn't create this, you know what I mean? And also in your household, does your work come into your household? Like, do you get so emotional and you look at your husband and you're like, you know what, you guys did us dirty? Like,
yeah, we do have these moments. And, I think that's something that's really been healthy for me. I have someone to yell at. I don't have to go out and yell at someone else. Yeah. And I we can just sit here and I can look at him. I was like, oh, you are so white. Like, he'll say something and I was like, oh, that was so white. And then he just stops and looks at me and he's like, yeah, I know. But I think this is, it's incredible. We've been married for 20 years next year. And this whole thing of being more open about racism and sharing my experiences with him, I'm not going to say that it saved our marriage, but I'm going to say that we have come so much closer to each other than we've ever been before, because we can be honest. He can be honest about how he feels, knowing that he shouldn't be centering himself because he's a white man getting upset about something that he shouldn't be upset about. But then also it's a huge, massive learning curve for both of us to chat about this, but it feels so healthy to have someone like friends as well to talk to.
Yeah, because in most cases it's like, if you are like this person who's like fighting for Black rights, automatically people are like, okay, you cannot be married to a white person. You know what I mean?
Yes. I know what you mean. I think it would be, I think it would be
you.
It has been a struggle. It has been a struggle over the years where I have felt that I haven't been, he hasn't been standing up for me. The excuse, which is not really an excuse, but it is an excuse because he's white, so he doesn't see it. So he doesn't realize that that's what these things are. Today, for example, when I walked up to the flat, there was someone standing on their balcony and they just shouted, oh, there's a Paki here as well. And I heard it, but I didn't really register because it's really sad to say, but you're so used to hearing these things. So you just kind of like, and I didn't say anything because I know that he would get so angry. So I didn't tell him until we came in, and I could see that he got really angry about it. But this is where I feel that anti-racism education comes in, that we don't go out and shout back at them, because that's not education. Shouting at people isn't education, and we don't know these people either. So I live in a building with people of color. I don't want any harm to come to them. So it's, in these instances, you need to kind of know when to leave it and when to do something about it. At the same time, it's good for him as well to hear these things. These things happen, and they happen pretty much on a daily basis as soon as you leave your house.
Yeah, so in that instant, like, what would you want your partner to be? Because I will tell about my experiences, like being with a white man. I found him like, no, I mean, you expect someone to be as angry as you are. I think that was one of the arguments. You look at this person, this has been said, or it's like supposed to be, it's meant to be a joke, and it's not funny at all, it's racist. And you're so angry, you're raging, and you look at this person, they're not as angry as you are. I think that's when the color thing comes, and you're like, if you are black, you'll really understand like what I'm going through. And some of the jokes, like one time his brother compared a black vagina to this ugly thing. Like, like those, I don't know what you call them. It's like, like those black thing with like pink, ugly, like tongues. You like, you just put your hand like, like used by comedians on stage.
Oh my.
And it's like, why would you laugh at this when he's never been with a black woman? The only black woman in this family is me. Something so private, something so gross. Like, and why are you laughing? And also, I wouldn't say that is the reason why, like, the marriage collapsed, but it's just like one of the things. You just feel like this person does not understand. He's not getting it. And every time I'm angry and upset about these things, it's like, calm down. It's just a joke.
Yeah, I think that this is the problem with Scotland, and I think the UK in general. It's the banter, because they do it in the name of banter, and then it's okay. Then you can basically say anything. You can say the N word, you can say the P word, you can say any word you want, because as long as you say, oh, I'm just joking afterwards, it's okay. And that's when it becomes really harmful. I was actually doing the equalities training for Unite last year, and I was in the room, and we were talking about the words, derogatory words not to use, and this white man was saying, well, I don't see the harm in it. I mean, it's just banter, it's just joking, and why can't I say, we're gonna run out of words to say? And I don't know how many times I've heard that. And I just told him, listen, if you are running out of words to say, maybe open a dictionary, because there's thousands of words in a dictionary that you can use instead of.
Because you can't say the N word, you're running out of words to say, or the P word. Wow. And why should we say N word and P word? I was just supposed to be like, why as a black person you're supposed to only say the N word? You can't say nigger. Is it like so wrong? Or we just like have to be respectful?
Yeah, I mean, that particular word was used.
As a black person now, why am I going around saying N word?
Yeah, no.
It's such a white thing to say. Like, why? Like,
it is. Yeah, because that's how it came about, and I don't know.
They're supposed to say N word. I can say nigger. I can go around like all day saying nigger. But I found myself having to say N word when I'm talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy how we just like kind of like conditioned to these things.
Yes. Yeah. We don't get to own our own language either. It's really damaging. And I did have a discussion with a man last year, and he was saying, these words, I'm going to the Paki shop, for example, or the Chinkies. And I'm like, yeah, but why can't, if someone's telling you, if you're telling someone it's actually really hurtful, you say something else.
Yeah.
And why can't we? Why are they holding on for dear life to these words? Like, oh my God, let go.
Yeah.
Because it's been so ingrained in society here. I do have to say that if I have a friend, if I have a white friend and they slip up and use one of the derogatory words, then I still think that we need to give a little bit of a leeway, just purely because it's so ingrained in society here. It's so ingrained from that you're a child, that if you're, it's part of your vocabulary. It's quite hard to change vocabulary, like stuff that you're really used to. If you're speaking really fast and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and then it just slips out and you're like, oh, for God's sake, okay, yeah, sorry. As long as it does followed by that, and then we're unlearning. I love the unlearning in things, because there's so much that white people have to unlearn.
Yeah, I think if you say, oh, I'm going to the party shop, I'm going to the gym, yeah, but you cannot make a mistake and say nigger. As if you're unlearning that, so you've been saying it behind closed doors. Like
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's all those things. And so you're gonna leave your Instagram page.
Yes. I'll just give you. So it's a Linktree. So it's linktr.ee/ and then our education. And that's for the anti-racism. And we are planning to set up a training hub. We want to get off social media and get online, because there's a lot of people who aren't on social media as well, and create a library that's interactive. So you can go on this platform and you can do training. You can either choose to go into the library and have a look at all the stuff there, or you can do a training to have a look at how much do I know and how much do I not know. And there'll be videos to watch, and there's stuff for families as well. I think it's really important to incorporate children in this, particular children of color as well. Because it's one of those things. I think I've spoken to quite a lot of parents, and they do find it really difficult to talk to their children about this, particular children of color. So how do you talk to your child about things that might have happened to you? And then we can do it in a safe environment, and there'll be a little bit of pressure off the parents, because there'll be something that someone else created, and you can kind of have a look at this.
Yeah. And also you're busy with your documentary and you with your editing. So you're busy.
Yeah, I feel that's the only way I want to be. I just want to be really busy, and I have another project on the go as well. It feels like everyone's been in limbo for the last 2 years with COVID and everything, and we both lost our jobs in Edinburgh 2 years ago, and that's why we had to move to Glasgow. And I don't think I really found my feet. Neither of us have found our feet here, and so we are looking to do a venture to make a dream come true. My husband always wanted to have a cafe, and I'd love to have a little small bed and breakfast somewhere. So we're looking at to make that a reality as well.
So what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
No, congratulations, man, and keep filming. Please make this film.
I will do.
Yeah,
And
please, it's so important.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know. It's just like your story is incredible. It's incredible. And I love your anti-racism work that you're doing. And thank you so much for everything.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll end the call and we continue to chat. Cool. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Scotland. Hi, welcome to this world. My name is Naomi, and I'm here in Glasgow at COP26.
About my peoples, about indigenous peoples, I think they will have no choice to act.
I remember your excitement when you hung me on the back of your door to be worn and used by you for you to do what you were supposed to do.
Early in the morning, my mom woke me and started packing my things in my suitcase and backpack. We walked for a long time. My feet was tired. Mom carried all the bags. Mom is so strong.
Caledonia, så kallat till mig, och nu käm jag hem.
Du weißt, es würde mich mehr als traurig machen, wenn ich ein Fremder werden würde.
Caledonia नै मसँग भएको सबै थोक थियो.
You are ugly. You are fat. You are too old. Get up. Get going. You can do it. Get up. Sometimes the biggest mountains that we climb is in our mind. Come walk with me.